Earning your degree online doesn't mean you have to go about it alone. At Capella University, we're here to support you when you're ready. From enrollment counselors who get to know you and your goals, to academic coaches who can help you form a plan to stay on track. We care about your success and are dedicated to helping you pursue your goals. Going back to school is a big step, but having support at every step of your academic journey can make a big difference. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by Rakuten. If you're shopping while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast, then you know and love the thrill of the hunt. But are you getting the thrill of the best deals? Rakuten shoppers do. They get the brands they love with the most savings and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like Samsung, Expedia, and Sephora. And even stack sales on top of cash back. It's easy to use, and you get your cash back through PayPal or check. The idea is simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's RAKUTEN.
Thanks for listening to the Red Treehouse, where I tell scary stories to keep you up at night. You can listen to the Red Treehouse on your favorite streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a 5-star review. You can follow the Red Treehouse on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, Threads, and Facebook at Red Treehouse Pod. And now you can find the Red Treehouse on Patreon. Join the Red Treehouse community for as little as $3 per month and receive exclusive member benefits, including personal shoutouts, early access to episodes, bonus episodes, and more. Simply go to patreon.com/Red Treehouse. As always, if you have a scary story or topic you'd like me to feature on an upcoming episode, email redtreehousepod@gmail.com. Important note, sources for this episode can be found in the show notes. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. In 2023, 143 people were reported missing in New Mexico, which ranked in the lower half of all states in the U.S. Something interesting, though. Where New Mexico ranked 32nd in the United States for total number of missing persons, the state ranked in the top 10, number 10 to be exact, for missing person rate, with 6.7 people going missing per 100,000. These numbers are startling and deeply unsettling. Of all the mysterious disappearances, perhaps one of the most well-known is the disappearance of Tara Calico, a young woman who vanished without a trace after going for a bike ride in a small town in New Mexico. Despite an ongoing investigation, her disappearance remains unsolved over 35 years later. In this episode of The Red Treehouse, we're going to explore the scary disappearance of Tara Calico. What happened to her in September 1988? And what role did an infamous Polaroid photo play in the investigation? I'll share the story. You decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. Tuesday, September 20th, 1988, started much like any other day. 19-year-old Tara Calico had a full day of activities and obligations. A sophomore at the University of New Mexico, Valencia, Tara was a good student who was pursuing a degree in psychology. She was outgoing, and by all accounts had many friends, and a bright future ahead of her. That morning, as Tara prepared to go on her daily 36-mile bike ride on New Mexico State Highway 47, she told her mother to keep her on a strict time frame. She had plans to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30 p.m. and had class later that afternoon. Sometime around 9:30 a.m., Tara, quote, took her mother's pink Huffy bicycle because hers had developed a flat tire a day or two prior, end quote. Something interesting. The route Tara took was a familiar one. In fact, her mother Patty often rode with her. But sometime prior to September 20th, Patty stopped riding with Tara over concerns of being stalked by a motorist. She was concerned enough not only to stop riding with Tara, but also to encourage her to carry mace while riding. Tara refused. Just before heading out, Tara told her mother to come pick her up if she was not back at the house by 12 p.m. Tara left the house around 9:30 a.m. Noon came and went, with no sign of Tara. Patty went out to look for Tara, as she said she would, thinking she would find her somewhere on the way back home. Patty followed the route exactly, and found no sign of Tara. Within a few hours, Patty contacted Valencia police and filed a missing persons report. Law enforcement quickly responded and began an investigation. Time was of the essence, and Tara was still nowhere to be found. One article described the scene from Tara's younger sister, Michelle Dole's point of view. Quote, I remember one of my sister's best friends and her boyfriend came to get me from school. They picked me up, and when we got home, there was a bunch of cops. She described her house as being in chaos, with a lot of law enforcement personnel, friends, family, and community members just wanting to help. End quote. Within a short time, police discovered pieces of a Sony Walkman and a cassette tape along the road where Tara had been riding. They also found bike tracks, which to some, quote, looked more like skids, perhaps a sign of a struggle, end quote. Witnesses came forward and told police they saw Tara riding her bicycle along Highway 47. They also shared an important but terrifying detail. Tara was being followed closely by a light-colored 1950s Ford truck towing a camper shell. Unfortunately, no one saw Tara's abduction. One of the original witnesses described what he saw. Quote, once I passed her, that's when I first focused my eyes on the so-called escort vehicle. And that's when the hair stood up on the back of my neck. And I said, wait a minute, this doesn't look good. End quote. It was reported that eyewitnesses saw Tara riding back home sometime around 11:45 a.m. And it is estimated that Tara disappeared within a 20-minute window from the time she was last seen to the time her mother, Patty, went to look for her. Based on eyewitness descriptions, police quickly put together a sketch of a potential suspect, which was described as, quote, a white or light-skinned man with red or brown hair, end quote, who was believed to be in his late 30s or early 40s. Despite these early leads, Tara remained missing. Still, investigators continued searching. A accompanied by local and state police, and an army of volunteers who searched on foot, horseback, ATVs, and more. Yet, despite these efforts, the case went cold. Until June 1989. On June 15, 1989, in Port St. Joe, Florida, nearly 1,500 miles east of Valencia, New Mexico, a woman stumbled upon a terrifying Polaroid photo in the parking lot of a local convenience store. The Polaroid photo depicts a harrowing and disturbing scene. In it is a young woman, likely in her late teens, and a young boy who looks to be a preteen. They are lying on a blanket, their heads propped up on pillows, in what appears to be a hollowed-out passenger van. The young boy is to the left of the woman, on her right if you're looking at the picture, and he is leaning on his right shoulder. The young woman is to the right of the young boy, on his left if you're looking at the picture, and she is laying on her back with her legs bent in front of her at a nearly 90-degree angle. Her hands are behind her lower back. Both are staring directly at the camera, and both have their mouths covered in black duct tape. The woman contacted police, showed them the photo, and told them she'd seen, quote, a windowless Toyota cargo van parked there when she entered the store, end quote. She also described the driver of the van, a man with a mustache, who was believed to be in his 30s. Police quickly set up roadblocks, with hopes of catching the driver, the van, the woman, and the boy. But none were ever found. In July 1989, a month after the photo was discovered, it was broadcast on A Current Affair, with the hope of finding the identity of the individuals in the picture. Friends of Tara and her family, noticing similarities between her and the woman in the photo, reached out to Patty with hopes that it could be a new lead in the case. I mentioned there were two people in the photograph, a young woman and a young boy. In May 1988, a 9-year-old boy, Michael Henley, went missing in New Mexico. In July 1989, after watching the episode of A Current Affair, Henley's relatives thought the boy in the photo bore a striking resemblance to Michael. Both families met with investigators, with Tara's relatives pointing out a few important details. First, the woman in the picture appeared to have a scar on her leg, an identical scar to the one on Tara's leg. Second, in the photo, there was a book on the right-hand side of the woman, My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews. V.C. Andrews was Tara's favorite author, and My Sweet Audrina was Tara's favorite book. The photo was sent to 3 agencies, who analyzed it. Scotland Yard determined the woman in the photo was Tara Calico. The Los Alamos National Laboratory concluded the woman in the photo was not Tara Calico. The FBI's analysis came back inconclusive. The agonizing search for Tara, and now a potentially missing boy, continued despite the lack of leads and evidence. Patty Dole and her husband John were later deputized in order to be able to investigate Tara's disappearance, and this allowed them to contact other law enforcement agencies to give and receive information. A tragic note. In 1990, the remains of Michael Henley were discovered in the Zuni Mountains, less than 8 miles from where he disappeared just 2 years before. The medical examiner determined Michael's cause of death was hypothermia, not foul play. Despite the national media coverage of both the photo and Tara's disappearance, the case went cold once again. In 1998, despite not having found her remains, Tara Calico was declared dead by a judge who determined she died by homicide. Tara's family never stopped looking for her. In May 2006, Patty Dole, Tara's mother, passed away. And in 2023, John Dole, Tara's stepfather, also passed away. Ensuing decades have brought various theories and possibilities to the forefront and thrust the case of Tara Calico back into the spotlight. In 2008, a Valencia County Sheriff's deputy, Renee Rivera, claimed Tara was riding her bicycle when two teenagers driving closely behind her accidentally hit her bike. Panicked, they drove off with Tara and killed her in an undisclosed location. He also claimed two other men were involved with burying Tara's body. The deputy also claimed the teen's family may be involved in the cover-up, though his claim has both been ridiculed and dismissed. No arrests have been made, and no charges have been filed. Something else that's interesting. Renee Rivera provided several locations for where he claimed Tara's body had been buried. Investigators dug up each of these areas and did not find Tara Calico. In 2009, David Barnes, the police chief of Port St. Joe, quote, received a photograph of a young boy with black marker drawn over his mouth, made to look like the 1989 photo. Barnes was mailed a second letter containing an original image of the boy. End quote. In 2013, the case was reopened after a deathbed confession was made by Henry Brown, who told police that Lawrence Romero Jr. and several friends discussed killing Tara on the day she went missing. An interesting note. Romero's father was the Valencia County Sheriff when Tara disappeared. In June 2023, the Valencia County Sheriff's Office announced a breakthrough in the case. A press conference offered some detail. Quote, at this time, law enforcement believes there is sufficient evidence to submit this investigation to the District Attorney's Office for review of potential charges. Currently, the identities and specifics of the persons of interest are sealed by the court and will remain so until a court order otherwise. End quote. As of today, it has been over 35 years since Tara Calico was last seen alive. It is possible, even hopeful, that after all this time, we may be close to learning more. May justice be served. I'll admit, mysterious disappearances really scare me. The story of Tara Calico is tragic. A young woman with the whole world ahead of her vanishes in plain sight while doing something ordinary, riding a bike. She'd made plans for later that day and planned to go to class in the evening. In some ways, her story is a cautionary tale that no matter who we are or what we're doing, we just never know what the minutes or hours will bring us. It's my hope that Tara is found alive. Today, she would be nearly 55 years old. But if my hope turns into the worst nightmare, it's my prayer that justice is served to those who brought harm upon her. As we close this episode of The Red Treehouse, we're left with this lingering and truly unsettling question. What happened to Tara Calico on September 22nd, 1988. I've shared the story. Now you decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.